Hey, what's up guys, TechTitan here and I'm back again with a brand new video. Before I begin, I just want to thank you all so much for watching my content. If you're new around here, don't be a stranger, make sure you leave a thumbs up and also make sure you subscribe to the channel. So with that being said, this is the TCL 50XL 5G and this might be one of the best budget phones for around $150. Trust me. 150 MSRP, you get a lot with this phone. So let's have a conversation about it and let's begin with the design itself. So this phone has in my opinion, a decent design. For 150 bucks, it doesn't look that bad. So the back has this kind of fake leather resemblance that feels decent. However, as soon as you touch it, you can tell that it's plastic and it's not like actual leather or anything even close to it. However, it gives it a nice look and a nice feel in the hand. It's still slippery though. And on the bottom you have a couple of your connectors. So you have a USB-C port that does support up to 18 watt of fast charging. You also have a microphone, your speaker, as well as still retained in 2024, which is crazy, a 3.5mm headphone jack if you still use it. So if you look at the right hand side, you have your power button that also acts as your fingerprint sensor and the volume up and down. And honestly, these buttons are just not quality at all. So this is where the $150 comes in play. So the buttons are mushy, they're not really that tactile. Even the power button that does act as a fingerprint sensor sits so flush that it kind of becomes hard to even press on. But not a lot to complain here, it still is a $150 device. So also on the back you have a triple camera setup with your main sensor being a 50 megapixel sensor. You also get an ultra wide as well as a macro sensor. But we'll have a conversation on the camera later on in the video. Overall though, as a design for $150, honestly, this doesn't look that bad. I know the buttons are not that good, but I can work past that for $150. So next up, I want to talk a little bit about the display. So this time around, TCL gave us a kind of a 6.78 inch full HD plus display, which again, it's not something that you commonly see in a phone at this price point. Okay, so it is an IPS panel. It's not an OLED panel, but that is to be expected at this price point. And the other thing that I want to mention is that you do get a 120 Hertz refresh rate. But as far as the screen itself and the quality itself, it's a decent IPS panel. There's a little bit of bleed on the edges, but honestly, it doesn't bother me all that much just because of the price of the phone, right? If the phone was priced higher, then I would complain a little bit more. The bezels are a little bit larger on the bottom, especially that chin, but overall though, doesn't seem that bad. And again, you get three options here. So you get what's called the smart refresh, which is a way for the phone itself or the display itself to automatically adjust between the refresh rates, or you can just keep it at 120 Hertz or 60 Hertz depending on how you're feeling and whether you want to save battery life or not. Overall though, the display seems to be pretty decent. If I were to complain about the display, it would be the brightness. So this phone is around 400 to 500 nits of peak brightness, which means that when it comes to putting it in like a more harsher light environment, then the display is not as bright. It's really kind of dim, but when you move far away from that environment, it becomes more usable. So keep that in mind if you're in the market of buying this phone. So next in this conversation is definitely going to be the performance. So this phone has the following specs. One, you get a 5010 milliamp hour battery, so big enough battery to last you pretty much all day. The other thing is you do get an octa-core processor with the MediaTek Dimensity 6100 Plus. So obviously this is definitely a budget processor. You get 6 gigabytes of RAM as well as 128 gigabyte of storage. Now what does that translate to overall though? I'm not going to lie to you, the performance I found it to be a little bit sluggish. However, when it comes to your daily tasks, it handles it fairly well. But when it comes to a little bit more heavy demanding tasks, this phone does lag and it does get slow. And the problem with these budget processors is that over time, they're going to show their age quicker than they should, right? So I feel like in the next 4 to 6 months, this phone is going to be extremely slow. However, as far as your RAM and your storage, you're fine in that regard. So take that advice and do with it as you wish, but the performance over time is definitely going to be slower. Let's quickly circle back to the camera system that this phone has. So like I mentioned before, this phone does have 3 cameras. One is your 50 megapixel main sensor that can shoot up to 1080p as far as video goes. You get also a low resolution 2 megapixel ultra wide as well as a 2 megapixel macro sensor. I don't really care for that macro sensor, they can keep it. The ultra wide is a nice feature to have. However, with that being said, when it comes to the actual camera app and the usability, I would say that one, it takes pictures fairly quick, so I don't really have a problem with that. But when transitioning between the main sensor to the ultra wide, it takes an extra second. It's actually really slow. It's one of the slower phones, but you still get an ultra wide. Just take your time when switching between lenses. When it comes to picture quality, I took a couple of pictures here and there, and I found myself not really interested in the quality of this camera. But then again, this is just one of the sacrifices that you have to make in order to get this phone to $150. Overall, though, if I were to give a conclusion on this phone, it would be this. So I just want to let you guys know that I've only used this phone for a couple of hours, so I haven't had this phone for a longer periods of time. I will do more testing to give you guys a proper conclusion, but as of right now, off the bat, here's what I have to say. This is definitely going to be an entry level phone for parents that want to buy their kids kind of their first smartphone, but they don't want to really break the bank. Or if you want it as a kind of a secondary phone, it works fine. So keep that in mind. Let me know what you think about this phone in the description below, in the comments below. And I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.